Was good? Was good, man? Boy, B Neil back in this thing. Had to restart the live. That's for some reason I recorded last night. Didn't touch anything. Just laid my head to sleep and come in the morning. Microphone just don't want to cut on. But we back in this thing, man. Y'all see the title? The double standard. I had to pull everything back up. Make sure we start from the jump. I gotta roll up, man. Frustrated after the beginning, but we're gonna get right into it, man. Been seeing a lot of conversations over the last few months, especially with Nick Cannon and NBA YoungBoy. I think the Diddy conversation is a newer conversation that I'm seeing, but I definitely been saying NBA YoungBoy needs to stop, Nick Cannon needs to stop. They're really just doing too much, and it speaks to a lot of things about how we view things as a society. And I would talk about how it really changed over the years, bro. Like for the longest, there was this saying that a man can't be a hoe, but through feminism, women push the narrative, and the only ones that really believe that men can be hoes are women. But essentially, it was a time period in life where men were men, and that's what we called it. Men were just being men. Men was gonna be men, and that's just what it was. And the thing about it is, the reason that there's a difference is because men and women are equal. And if we can acknowledge that, then we can move forward with this whole conversation. But if we can't acknowledge that simple thing, um, the rest of this conversation won't even make sense to you. So let's just be real. Let's get that out the way in the beginning. But we'll get into Miss Kim Barbie's point right now, and then we'll kind of break it down. But Diddy messing with all these women in our faces, and nobody judges. But Meg was enjoying her grown single life with being ridiculed. It's a crazy example of the classic double standard. Well, like I said earlier, the double standard things and things like that, it's just like I said, it's based on. Let me slow down. Me restarting, bro. It's like I'm repeating myself, and I'm a little frustrated. But let me slow down. Let's go to my tweet. We just read my tweet. Men and women aren't equal. Women grant access to sex. So based off what she was saying, the double standard. Well, there isn't a double standard because the granting access to sex only comes from one side. Men can't really do that because women hold all the risk of sex, especially when you talk about a man being able to walk out and not have to take care of a child, or a man being able to give a disease, or a man basically having access to her and her feelings and emotions. She's taking the risk and allowing somebody that she should know and should have vetted, but she's trusting what she has done. That work that she's done is good or whatever, and so now she's taking that risk and letting you have sex. So in the in the eyes of safety, in the eyes of just like logic, women typically are the ones controlling. Yes, we're going to have sex. No, we aren't going to have sex. Usually, it's the man trying to negotiate his way into trying to get the woman to buy into why she should have sex with him. It's never really the other way around, and we'll get into that a little bit later in this statement. So if a man have a lot of sex, he had the approval of a lot of women. Let's be real. Let's be real there. A man has to earn it. A man just doesn't get these things. A man just can't have sex with a woman just because he's a dude. He has to be able to have a certain level of charisma. He has to have a certain level of character. He has to have a certain level of game and wisdom. So if he's able to have sex with a lot of women, that means a lot of women approve of him. And most of the time, that approval won't be something that's just based off superficial things. Yes, it could be money, but ultimately he has to have some type of integrity, some type of consistency if he's earned money. Or he has to have some type of wisdom or wit about him if he earned money. If he has swagger, that means he spent time cultivating his personality to where it matches him and his style, and it matches his body and all those different things where it fits him perfect like artwork. That takes a certain level of je ne sais quoi or class or whatever you want to say it that a woman would be attracted to. These are all different things that a man has to kind of have to basically get access to women. Now, there's certain qualities of women, and certain women have different standards or whatever. But at the end of the day, women have control. So if a woman has a lot of sex, she's just easy with no standards. Women have a lot of sex, doesn't take any effort. She can just have a lot of sex just because God made her a woman. And you can say that in many other aspects. If you have a God ability or God given talent, and you're just lolling or just resting on those laws of just, oh, God gave me gifts. I don't have to do the work. I don't have to amplify. I don't have to amplify them. I don't have to evolve these gifts, right? Most of the time you create usually the character that comes from that type of mentality aren't the best type of people. Usually people don't want to hang around those type of people. So when a woman is having a lot of sex just because it's just because she's a woman, it it's not the same as a man that has to cultivate certain personality types and certain character and certain um game. So when you look at it on the flip side, a woman having a lot of sex, it don't take a lot of effort because most of the time men, if everything is safe, if everything is kosher, if there's no drama involved, most times men will take sex. Most of the time men are looking and seeking sex. So for a woman to find sex, I mean, it's just easy as trying to find a breath of fresh air. Just go outside. Like, that's a fucking bar. I ain't gonna lie to you. Just go outside. That's a fucking bar. A woman finding sex is as easily as trying to find a breath of fresh air. It's just going outside. Go to the corner store. I don't even have to look good. I can look mid and be at Walmart. I can have a button on my head and go to Walmart, and these niggas still be shooting. We see women say it. I be looking all type of ways. I ain't even brush my teeth, and niggas all up in my face. I'm trying to just get some water and some eggs at the grocery store before I go back in the house. But niggas all in my face. We see it all the time. Women don't even have to be at their best and niggas are shooting at them. Why? Because there's always levels of men looking for sex. If a woman really needed sex, she wouldn't even have to pay for it. Let's be real. If a man was at his bottom, right, he would have to pay for sex. If a man had no options, no swag, no game, just pitiful, miserable, just being, energy, spirit, everything about him, he would have to pay for sex. It could be the same equivalent woman. She can even be big. Like the dude that I was talking about on the flip side, he could be appealing looks wise and still would have to pay for sex if he was a bum nigga. A woman could look like shit and still find sex somewhere. Now, is it going to be the best option? Is he going to be the best dude in the world? No, but we're not talking about finding somebody to marry. We're just talking about sex right now. A woman at her low, even if she look bad, can find sex. So let alone be a pretty to average woman. You can find sex in a day if you wanted to. You can find sex within a minute or an hour if you really wanted to. A man will have to put in on a certain level of work, spray a certain level of cologne, put on some shiny jacket, put on some shiny shoes, maybe even a shiny grill. And then, nigga, the first thing that come out of your mouth better be uber confidence. And you still might have to take the bitch on a date before you can get sex. So the amount of work that you would have to put in is just different. Like I see young dudes, if they get a girl phone number, or they like they had a successful engagement with a woman, bro. You see the young boy face just light up because he accomplished something, bro. He got over his fears. He attacked his goals. Like, and so many other different things that's like fundamental to like somebody that's healthy growing up. It just so happened to be another person on the other side of it. But you can see a lot of times with the right head on the man's shoulders and he got the right guidance and not led down the red pill rage or not just led down to living your life through women and the only way you can really call yourself a man is having a bunch of sex. If he's not led down that road, and those are usually men that are hurt and shit like that that get led down that road, no guidance and things like that. If he really had men around him telling him like, hey bro, men get hurt, men gonna take rejections, but every man has done that. It's a part of the game. Don't get in your feelings. Man up, do better, and go back out there and get the fishing. When a man has that type of like guidance around him, like the interaction with women and the different engagements that you can learn is I really can't even break it down all the way. But it's so many different benefits. Vice versa. A woman that's just sleeping around with anybody that don't have to earn it, she's gonna be drained. She's gonna feel unloved. She's gonna feel used. She's gonna feel dirty, unclean, abandonment issues. So like a man with the right guidance dealing with a lot of women, he's gonna build a certain integrity. He's gonna build a certain character. He's gonna build a certain like physique or je ne sais quoi that women just love, right? Vice versa, a woman doing that thing, she it's not gonna come off the same. She's gonna bring up more trauma and all these other different things. And that's when you talk about a woman that's just having sex with anybody. And then think about it too. You also getting a sexual satisfaction, right? But when a man gets sexual satisfaction, he put in work. He made a certain amount of money, that bought a car, that bought some clothes, that bought some cologne. He put the certain right of friends around him that helped him get some swag, helped him get some game, helped him get some funny. He watched and read enough books to make him be able to have certain conversations. So when he has sex with a woman, all those things come to a head and show like, hey, bro, you actually on the right path to a degree. Now you should not need a woman to be able to do that, but it does. Let's be realistic. That is a natural byproduct of sex for a man. Feeling like, hey, bro, like your life and how you moving is somewhat accomplished. That's why I say jacking off and having sex can be like instant gratification when you don't deserve it. So when a man actually earns sex and actually deserves sex, it's a gratification that's well deserved. When a woman has sex with a bunch of men, there's no gratification that should be deserved because what does she have to do to be able to do that besides just be a woman? Be realistic. So when you look at the difference between a man and woman, there's a lot of clear differences. But we'll act like there's this crazy double standard. This crazy just don't make sense double standard. But so furthermore, people will talk about guys like I said, Nick Cannon and P. Diddy and NBA YoungBoy. And I thought of something interesting back on the last stream that couldn't hear me. I feel that fatherhood and how important fatherhood is needs to be talked about more. Like obviously, when there's no fathers in our homes, the chances of you raising a murderer, the chances of you raising a woman that's in sex work industry, the chances of you raising someone that's going to have depression or end up in jail is just significantly higher than a person with a father in their life. So we know that a father being in their life is significant. But one thing I feel like is important is the time period and how that father may be in their life. So what I mean is, like, with women, they say it's important for a woman to be in a child's life from 0 to 7 years old because that's the nurturing phase, that's the coddling phase, that's the need emotion, need constant tending, need constant attention. Versus the next phase of their life, they're starting to become more and more gradually independent, and that's when the father is more needed, because while they're on their road to independence, they're going to need guidance, and they're going to need strong and stern wisdom and counseling and disobedience, or whatever you want to call it, from that father. So the thing about that is, though, is does that father have to be constantly implementing that every day? Does he need to spend a week with the child to implement a certain wisdom in that child for that season? Does it need to be by season? Does it need to be daily? Does it need to be bi-weekly? And the reason I say that, because men used to go off to war and their dad never came back. But before they left, their father instilled as much things as they could in them for them to raise the next generation. And well, look where we're at today. We're here. That it worked, apparently. Or men would go to war and then come back. Go to war, then come back. Like, their father would be gone for mean stints. Or they'll go hunt buffalo or go hunt these different things that'll be miles away, like hundreds of miles away. Tracking these different things down, running these different things down. Like, people, like, we used to run down deer for 300 miles. You got to, I don't even know if it was 300 miles or whatever, but you got to think how far that is in terms of distance. Like, people would be gone for days and weeks. Like, to think about traveling from one side of America to another, people used to have to do that. People were like, well, I need to go to New York when it was the 13 colonies or some shit, or I need to go to Georgetown or something like that. Nigga, that shit's gonna take 3-4 months just to travel to Georgetown, and just to travel to Georgetown, not even talking about traveling back. Or imagine saying I need to travel overseas or something like that, because they're giving money to people that's traveling to the new world and come back and tell us what they seen. That shit would have took a damn near a year. So it was times where fathers would have been out of that kid's life. But it doesn't mean that the kid didn't have wisdom. That doesn't mean that the kid still didn't get guidance. And the reason I'm bringing all this is up because Nick Cannon has all the resources to still be in his children's lives. It won't be on the daily. But let's be real, there's many fathers that won't be in their children's lives at all. Him not being there on the daily, yeah, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's not the worst thing either when we consider there's women out here that we literally let glorify being single mothers, that literally say, I'm gonna get a surrogate and not have a father in the life just because I can, and they don't even be having the resources to do these things. Nick Cannon at least have the resources. P. Diddy at least have the resources. So that's what makes me like question like how bad of it is, but it is a legitimate argument and gripe to bring up. I'm not gonna act like it's 100% disingenuous, but it also makes me feel like just throughout here, like people forget history. Throughout history, we have men like this all the time. There's always been Genghis Khans and kings and emperors and noblemen that had many women, bro. And sometimes the women knew about each other through rumors. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes the father visit the bastard child once a year. Sometimes they didn't. Is it 100% right? I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is. But one thing I say is, if the child has provisions, a roof over his head, food on the table, and the father's at least contributing to that, that's a big part of his job already done. The only other part of the job that needs to be done is the wisdom part of it and the stern guidance. And I think a father can do that. I think a father can do that. Like, think about even today's era of men. Say you don't go to war or something like that. A lot of men travel. A lot of men travel. A lot of men work a lot of hours. And typically you'll want your wife at home if a man works a lot of hours, but that's how life kind of goes from time to time. A man would spend more time at work and outside of the house than he would spend in the house. Especially someone that's uber successful, that's traveling, having to do meetings, having to do business deals all over the country, all over the world. So even then, even if it was a single father, he still wouldn't be present like a father that work a blue collar job. So should he not be a father still? Like I can't see someone really making an argument and having a legitimate point. Obviously, I will say this: two-parent households show to be way better than single parent or separated households. So that's another question. That's another question. But I think the biggest problem with society is that we demify these type of men that's earned this. I think our biggest problem with society is that these women don't stay on the compound with him if he wanted them to, if he allowed them to. If he liked them women enough for them to stay with him, I feel like that should be the thing that's going on. Don't tell him he can't have sex with a bunch of women and have children. Tell him he need to do it more smartly. Because there's plenty of men that have compound with multiple wives and stuff like that. And I feel like that's would be the most successful version of what he's doing. Because like I said, he can't show all the attention to all his kids all the time. Yeah, he could be there seasonally, but there's an argument that's not great. So knowing that, I would say my argument to it is put them in a compound, have a big house, have a big have a multiple mini houses on in one big neighborhood. Build a neighborhood for everybody in your family. Your baby mamas, everybody. A little Tyler Perry movie complex type neighborhood. You seen what he did? He got a whole like however many acres. And I feel like that'd be better because then it's like, oh, we can all come together. All the kids can play together. The women can give each other breaks. Like say one of these, say like two or three women want to go out. Well, two or three other women want to stay in the house anyways that day. So everybody can go to their house. And then it's trustworthy people because they are brothers and sisters. So it's like, I feel like that's where the conversation can be moved to more than like, oh, these men are wrong for having multiple kids. It's like, nah, like let's be more let's evolve the brain more than that. Because monogamy isn't the only way. And to act like it is just fucking ridiculous, bro. Because ain't no uber successful man gonna have millions of women at his heels begging and wanting him, craving him, and you think he's gonna deny every last one of them. It's not in his nature. It's not in no one's nature, especially a man's. I would argue it's not even in women's nature to a degree, but it's definitely not in men's nature. So to expect that of a man is just it's crazy, especially one that's successful. But this shouldn't even really be a conversation, to be honest, because once again, if men and women aren't equal, this is a common sense conversation. The common sense conversation. Somebody probably talking shit. So does this apply to my mother as well? I don't get what you mean. Men and women aren't equal. women grant access to sex. So if a man have a lot of sex, he had the approval of a lot of women. If a woman have a lot of sex, she just had sex with easy, no standards. I mean, it applies to all women. I'm not catching her drift. I'm like, bro, I just bought this fucking keyboard and mouse and this shit been, oh look, now I want to type everything. What the fuck? I can't type. It's just that was even like, even that response is stupid as fuck. I, I don't. Arguing with stupid people makes you feel stupid. I can't legit say that because the only argument that she could possibly have is trying to justify women wanting to have a lot of sex with a bunch of people. And that's fine, go do it. Just understand no one's going to respect you like a man that's having a lot of sex with a bunch of women. Men look up to men that have sex with a lot of women. Why? Because we be like, he earned it. We know the lifestyle. We know the status. We know he probably on some boats. We know he probably we know he probably smoking some cigars. We know he probably got the finest wines around him. We know he probably got the finest everything around him. That's why a bunch of women want to be around him. So a man wants the whole lifestyle, including the women that come with it. A woman seeing another woman sleep with a bunch of women, no one craves. I mean, a woman seeing another woman sleep with a bunch of men, no one craves that. No one says that's goals. No one says that's admirable. No one says that's something they could look up to. Why? Because it's not something that's hard to do. Men look at that goal as something like this big grandiose thing because it is something hard to do. Only 1% of people do that unless you got a good amount of swagger for the level that you live in, and then yeah, you can have access and a lot of options for women. But even then, there's always like a 1% of each class level. So yeah, there's like this dude in middle class that got a lot of swag in this little middle class house and shit. Got a bunch of options, running bitches through it. Yeah, he's not fucking Drake, but in his middle class, he's average. He got the average amount of money, but everything else is higher than everybody else. He got more swag. He's more fit. He's more charismatic. He's more confident than every other man in the middle class. And of course, there's other men like him, but they all fall into that 1%. And even in the lower class, it's bum dick niggas. What they call the niggas, hobosexuals. There's other niggas that staying with their mom, not getting no pussy at all. Then there's other niggas out here living from one woman to the next woman, house from house. Because why? Because they still have some type of game. So there's always a 1% of men, even on certain classes, that can do it. But even then, most men look at those men as like, man, they doing something I couldn't do, even though we on the same financial game. That man show has a lot of swag, or that man show is bold as hell. Damn, you seen how he just went to go talk to that woman? That nigga, I really couldn't do that. There's so much stuff in me that wouldn't allow me to do that. So when a man sees another man talking to a lot of women, he understands what it takes. When a woman or men see another woman getting a bunch of bodies, we all understand what it takes. Just land on your back. Just answering in your DMs. Just walking outside. It don't take much for a woman to get sex. So does this apply to her mother? Yeah, it applies to all women. If a woman wants to be respected for having a lot of sex, good luck to you. There's nothing respectable about it. And let's be real. If we was to talk about men and the other side, it's respectable, but it's respectable outside of just him having sex with a lot of women. It's the whole other things that you can imagine along with him having a lot of women. Because guess what? When you see beautiful women on boats and shit, it's niggas that own them. It's niggas that's renting them out. So you can assume you can't rent out no boat. So that nigga must have a nice car too. I'm pretty sure he got some nice watches. I'm pretty sure he got some nice clothes. I'm pretty sure he went to some nice restaurants. And he might go to nice restaurants every day. Most men would love to do that. Most men aspire to want to do that, unless their will is kind of broken. But even then, they'll at least imagine that they could be that one day. But regardless, they're respected. Women been trying to, whole women and these feminist women been trying to get their respect and be like, why can't we get treated like the same? It's because it doesn't take the same amount of effort for you to get a bunch of men. It just doesn't. She called out my mom's, brother. She called out my mom's. Like, it's crazy, bro. It's crazy. I didn't even at her. I don't. Yeah, this Kim Barbie. This not even the same person. So they just on some what do you call it? The shoe fits or a hit dog holler. Because I didn't even at her. She just seen the shit and got a. What's even crazier is nobody retweeted my shit. So that means she's in the quote tweets, just looking through, finding some hate. Because it wasn't nobody even retweeting my shit before it even pop on her page, the Brat fan account, and I know that person don't follow me. So that's what's funny about the shit. It's definitely a hit dog hollering. But I don't get it, man. Like kings used to have multiple wives. Let's see. It say, how did kings manage to have so many wives at a time? The rules of Hinduists follow were too civilized. What is that? The king with 100 wives. That's funny as fuck. And then I see the shit with Drake. That's another conversation. I see the Drake and all the women that he wished he would have married and how women got offended at that shit. It's like he's clearly fucking joking. But even if he did, you, women find it preposterous that Drake could have had the idea of marrying that many different women. Do y'all, bro? Me personally, me personally, I can't think of women that I would want to like just marry just right off the back. But just to say, when I was younger, I had long-term relationships. I've been like 3 or 4 long-term relationships. So just assume if the things was to naturally play out in a progression, right? That they would have went long-term. That's like 4. That's 4. 4 is a lot. Let's be real. So 4 possibly that I thought could be long-term, possibly, right? Not necessarily married, but long-term, possibly. I've been in high school. I've been in the workforce. And I've ran across a lot of women, right? And this 4 is my number. This nigga Drake is global. This nigga Drake is always accessible to women, especially beautiful women. 54, Drake, that was probably 1 year. Like, let's be real. Them 54 women or 45 women that he thought he was gonna marry, he probably met them all in 1 year. Like, let's be real. Let's be real. Like the amount of women that Drake would run through and versus the amount of women that Drake would take seriously. So say Drake runs through 1,000 women a year. How many women you think he takes seriously? It's gonna be a percentage of that. What, 1%? That's 100. Less than 1%, half of 1%, that's 50. And that's just 1 year. You think he don't take none of them women seriously? It's crazy. Crazy. Let's say he take 10 let's say Drake fuck or Nick Cannon fuck or any of these niggas. I don't want y'all to think I'm factuated fucking Drake. Let's say any of them dudes fuck 100 to 500 girls a year. Like, these are the type of numbers these dudes would be cracking. I know niggas that fuck that many women and they ain't nowhere near as famous as these women. I mean, these men. So these dudes are cracking them type of numbers. Let's be real. I don't think y'all know the type of lifestyle these men live. It's nice where they are knocking down 8 women in one night. I remember sitting at a table with Bill, and he had one of his like Austrian friends or whatever, and he would just talk about his sexapades that he had in think like, I don't remember where it was, but it was somewhere in Africa, I think. And he would just talk about his sexapades he had in Africa or wherever the hell he was at. And he just talk about he had a big old house. He wake up, sunset, the sun rising, and just be 8 bitches in the bed. And he just talk about he was like, that's a good night. That's a good night. And it wasn't no dude that you could tell that only happened to him one time and he was living like this past. Like, nah, that was an occasional thing. And these dudes Bill is rich as hell, and Bill was telling us this nigga was richer than him. And millionaires. Bill got 10 plus cars, Ferrari, all type of shits. And this dude's supposedly richer than him. So I said, hey, let's imagine 100 girls in a year on the minimum. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Think of a concert. Think about every restaurant Drake goes to. It's like picking apples off a tree. What fruit, nigga? You gonna eat fruit? You gonna eat? You like fruit, don't you? You gonna pick off the tree. And niggas get hungry on the daily. So, I mean, you can have the same fruit if you want to. I'm sure he does, but that's a different type of fruit on that tree. I might try that today. You gotta be realistic. You gotta be realistic with somebody that big, that famous. So let me get to my point. 100 to 500. 1% of that, 10% of that, each year he may take seriously. Less than 1%. There's still a lot of people that's gonna acquire throughout the time. So even with Drake wanting to take a certain level of women seriously over time, it's just like, it makes sense. It makes sense. If we really talking about doing the numbers. 42 proposals is crazy. Yeah, I want to marry everyone back then. My nigga remember. I mean, I just thought that was the natural progression of relationships. Why do you get in relationships? Obviously, it's to have sex nowadays, but me being, pure-minded, I thought you had sex with people because you wanted to get married with them. I just thought that's how it worked. Like, I remember when someone told me you didn't have to be in a relationship you didn't have to be in a relationship to have sex with somebody. My mind was blown. I was like, what? At that moment, I knew I was an old soul because I was like just contemplating that for months before I could actually like realize that was a thing. So my next progression was like, okay, yeah, I can have sex with people without a relationship, but if we do have sex and we do end up in a relationship, I mean, ain't that's where that's heading. But I don't know. I don't know what people be intending when they want to get married and shit. I mean, when they get in these fake relationships and stuff like that. Solomon had 1,000. Why did God allow Solomon to have 1,000 wives and concubines? 1 Kings 11:3 states that Solomon had 700 wives, princesses, and 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. Concubines are just side bitches, essentially. Obviously, God allowed Solomon to have these wives, but allowance is not the same as approval. Solomon's marital decisions were in direct violation of God's law. I mean, nigga, 700 is fucking obsessive. Solomon stated well out early in his life, listening to the counsel of his father David as recorded. Be strong, show yourself a man, observe what the Lord your God requires, walk in his ways, and keep his decrees and commands. If laws and requirements as written in law of Moses, so that you may prosper in all, do it wherever you go. Solomon early humility is shown in Kings when he requests wisdom from the Lord. Wisdom is applied to the knowledge. It helps make decisions. Wisdom is Proverbs. Get to the point where it's bad. Over Solomon fought over his own counsel and wisdom. God had given him clear instructions for anyone who would become king. No amassing of horses, no multiplying of wives, no accumulating of silver and gold. These commandments were designed to prevent the king of trusting any military might for foreign gods and relying on the wealth instead of God. And any survey of Solomon's life will show that he broke all three of these divine prohibitions. That's interesting. That's interesting. The reasons why they gave for him is what makes it interesting to me, because it said the commands were designed to prevent the king from basically being betrayed. It wasn't really that he was doing wrong, like, because God says to be abundant, right? So, in other times, he'll tell you to accumulate wealth and do things like that because obviously it's more lucrative to your survival. But in this situation, it's not lucrative to your survival to have these different concubines, to have these different women, to have these different mechanisms that you rely on, like wealth, when you have God and you have things that's already been provided to you as far as the resources and the safety of your kingdom. So in that situation, of course, God will command him not to do something that could literally trespass against Solomon and God's message and God's journey for Solomon. So of course that makes sense. So I wouldn't argue that in any way. But to Solomon to taking so many wives and concubines was in direct violation of the word. Just as God predicted, as Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted in the Lord of God. To please his wives, Solomon even got involved in sacrificing to Milcom, and God required a God that required detestable acts to be performed. That makes sense too. You chase behind women, you live behind all those women, and shit, you gonna start forgetting a lot of things that you came from. So that makes sense. It makes sense. And I would suggest the same thing. I'm not saying go out here and sleep with a bunch of women. I said that in the beginning. I don't advocate for a man just going out here and sleeping with a bunch of women and basically living through women. Like, he can't feel like a man unless he having sex with women. He can't feel like a man unless he got a woman. He can't feel like a man unless he getting a bunch of numbers. That's some dude trying to live up to his high school friends and make somebody proud, that trying to make his uncle proud that he had a talk with a long time ago, trying to make his boys proud that he feel like his boy, or even if his boys don't think like that no more. That's the conversation they used to have or some shit like that. Or a dude that's heartbroken and like, I'll never love a woman again. I'll only just fuck. It's like, and they go down a red pill rage. Them are dudes like that, and it's like, of course. And then there's the Drakes that's just gonna be like, is his life naturally women are gonna come to him. It's easily that these women gonna come to him. But even then, you'll have to be very concerned about how easy accessible you are, because once again, if we are to use Drake, he didn't want to have a baby by that woman, and that came from him being, cheap with his seed essentially, and cheap with who he slept with essentially. So that was the risk, and now he's technically, say God helped him create this big empire. His empire is at risk of being taken away from, because once a woman has a kid with you, she can take, not kid, that's marriage. Once a woman get married, she can take half, but she can ask for large amounts of money, and depending on judges and stuff like that, she can get it as well. So it is ways where trying to live through women or have a bunch of women can go against you, but that's common sense. That's common sense. But let's see. The bitch spit in my face. What's wrong with these people, bro? People funny, man. I ain't gonna lie. This is hilarious. Um, let's see. Let's read any more. Let's read some more. I don't know what the fuck I just said anymore. Um, Solomon gets involved. Okay. God allowed Solomon to make choices to disobey, but Solomon's choice brought inevitable consequences. Bada bing, bada boom. I mean, we already know. All right, cool. It said God will bring every deed into judgment. Very true. Very true. That's called Murphy's Law. The worst can happen. The sum of all your actions will end up averaging out essentially. Um, so yeah, I'm not gonna sit up here and say monogamy or polygamy is 100%, but you can have them same things that happen to you where you can be a monogamous person and you move to a different city behind your woman and you don't know any of the bearings, you don't know any of the land, so now you gotta follow her lead. You start going to her church. You just start getting sucked up into her world. You start watching her shows. You start believing her shit and all the things that she believe and her gossip and all that shit. And you can easily be swayed behind a woman too, because if a man doesn't have options, if a man's scared to lose a woman, he could be just as manipulated into losing their God and being swayed away from their God. I see it all the time. Men that have a certain way that they live, but then they get this woman in their life and they are just completely changed because they feel like she the one. And respect to it, I understand that. But if you felt a certain way about how you moved and how you lived and how you are as a man, anybody that love you and want to be with you should accept you for you, and you shouldn't be scared to do certain things or scared to move a certain type of way because of you may lose somebody. And a lot of men do that. A lot of men, I seen men convert. I seen men think about converting. I've seen men accept things that they would never accept from another man, another friend, even family members, but they accept it from a woman because they're giving them some pussy. They love them. It's the child of their life. She had the children of their lives and all. I cannot fucking speak. She had the child. She's the children of their mother and all this different shit. Mother of their child or whatever the fuck. I can't talk. I slaughtered that. I slaughtered that. We got to play today. How much is your setup you have? I bought my computer for like $600 a few years ago. Maybe like 7. I ain't gonna cap. Might have been 8. But I ain't had to get all that. This mic and shit. I think the mic. I'm not even sure. My friend gave me this mic, but I know it's like 100 probably. The stand like 50. And I mean, shit. The camera I'm using right now actually is somewhat like $400. I think he said. But over time, I gathered everything. Shit, I ain't just get everything at once. I bought I bought the computer before COVID started, or like right when COVID started. I literally just got this microphone from him, and I was working with this Yeti that I had for the longest, which was like $100, and then I was using a webcam camera, which was only like $60. So I mean, there's ways you can have a cheaper setup for sure. Only reason my computer was so high is because I wanted to play games on it. But you can get like a regular desktop like for like $200. That's still gonna run pretty fine. And then you can put new motherboards and shit out, and new motherboards and processors and all that different stuff in it later as you get more money. But I think I might be able to play tonight if we don't go live. I'm going to work at 1. I might could play after this live for a little bit. What was I talking about? I was interested in looking at this. Because Solomon wasn't the only person that went through that. Question polygamy is interesting. One, and most people today view polygamy as immoral, while the Bible nowhere explicitly condemns it. The first instance of polygamy and bigamy, I don't know what that. The act of going through marriage ceremony while already married with someone. Okay. Where was I? Polygamy, moral. First instance of the Bible was in Lochmi in Genesis 4:19. Lochmi married 2 women. Several prominent men in the Old Testament were polygamists. Abraham, Jacob, David, and Solomon all had multiple wives. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines, essentially wives of lower status. Oh, he's saying the concubines. According to 1 Kings, what are we to do with all the instances of polygamy in the Old Testament? There are 3 questions that need to be answered. Why did God allow polygamy in the Old Testament? How does God view polygamy today? And why did it change? Why did God allow polygamy in the Old Testament? It doesn't specifically say why polygamy is, God allowed polygamy. As we speculate about God's silence, there is at least one factor to consider. Due to patriarchal societies, and it was nearly impossible for unmarried women to provide for herself. Women are often uneducated, untrained, and women rely on fathers, brothers, husbands, provision. Brothers and fathers for provision and protection. Unmarried women were often subjected to prostitution and slavery. And that reminds me of that one TV show, Bridgerton or whatever, when the girl got pregnant, unmarried, and they was trying to force her to get married very quickly before she had the baby, because she was basically doomed if she was a single mother. So outside of a woman not having fathers, brothers, and husbands, if she end up getting, what do you call it, pregnant and not having a father, fried. Like maybe the father will take care of it, but if she didn't have that, she was basically left to the streets along with the baby. And the only places that they had to put a roof over their head was basically whorehouses. Which is, thank God, times have changed where a woman can provide for herself. Essentially, if things got too bad as far as she didn't have fathers and brothers. But I feel like a woman being able to work should be a safety measure to say if she didn't have a successful father or necessarily successful brothers in front of her, or she couldn't find a husband. Then she go out there and work and try to create for herself. But it shouldn't be the go-to thing, if you ask me, because that's not what fulfills women. Usually they end up being mad, depressed, and all these other different things. So yeah, it's out there. And yeah, it should stay out there because I don't want it to go back to prostitution and slavery by any means. But I feel like there still should be a healthy line drawn back to thinking that they need to be independent. Because my next point is, women are, it says, uneducated and untrained. That's obviously has changed. But the thing I think is ultimately trying to say is that most of the time women need help. And it's no different than a man. A man needs help as well. If he wanted to get through something, if he wanted to tend the field, if he wanted to start a business, he'll be more successful with other people, let alone just trying to do it by himself. That's literally like Ecclesiastes or something like that. I forgot. I just pulled it up on Twitter not too long ago. So essentially, even if a woman had to like things to be by herself, it would be better for her to have the provisions and protections of her husband or of a husband or brothers and fathers. But brothers and fathers only last so long. Like they'll always be there, but you're supposed to naturally move on to your husband because your brother's gonna have wives and kids they need to take care of and think about, along with the father still having a family to think about along besides just you most of the time. So a lot of times a wife need her own husband to create their own family so she can have her own personal protection and provision as she naturally progresses and get older. The thing is, men go to war, men die early, men go to jail, and some men are just unfit to be husbands and protect and provide. So knowing that, a lot of times women options are a lot less when you consider good men gonna be married. So it lends to the idea that maybe a lot of these women do need to be with a man and another woman, because what's really gonna happen by the time like the next 20, 30 years goes, there's gonna be a bunch of women staying with other women. Kevin Samuel, you said it. Lesbianism gonna go higher and get higher because of women feel like their only option is to go to other women. But I really don't feel like that's the next best option. So say monogamy didn't work or male and women monogamy didn't work. For women, their next best option is lesbianism. But is that truly their next best option, or should it be polygamy? If a woman is struggling to find a husband, but there's this man out here that has an urge and his wife really don't care because she can get some extra help around the room, or around the house, have a companion and a girl to talk to, why wouldn't that be a better option where there's a man there to help balance out the feminine energy? Because two women being with each other, being emotional on a period, you already know how snappy women can be. So imagine two women being snappy at each other. How that's gonna work? Lesbian women have way higher domestic violence. Why? Because there's no masculine energy in the room to break it up. My damn two cats in here be fighting like Tom and Jerry. Why? Because of the feminine energy. They just keep fucking going at each other. I don't know what it is. Like they be playing too, but they be also going at each other a lot of times. But I see it all the time. Constantly have to break them up from getting into it more. It wouldn't be no different if it was just no man there and it was just two women. And you could say, well, who would want to deal with that type of energy? Had the update right now, dropped 17 kills in the dub. Ooh, that's crazy. That's crazy. But fighting right now, just on some shit all day long. I finally got this happen to me. I finally got somebody pulling up my own tweet against me. That's not me supporting him. You know what I just thought about? How you get permission to make a documentary without R. Kelly consent? 9 out of 10, they had to get permission to whoever the rights to who had the name. She's an idiot. I'm not saying that they had that he I'm not saying I support him or he like what? I'm so confused. Only reason I said that he got that bringing up this shit is because R. Kelly most likely got paid off of that documentary. Or whoever has license to R. Kelly name probably got paid off to that documentary. and this was before I knew he was going to jail, so I just assumed that this was going to make him bigger and his streams was going to get viewed more. Which I mean, that his streams technically did go up. He just went to jail. I didn't think he was going to jail, so that's why I said that. That was in light of me not knowing he was gonna go to jail and thinking that this trial shit, or not even this trial shit, that Netflix shit was just another bullshit documentary that was gonna just blow over here, be here today and gone tomorrow. Yeah, I was wrong about that. But even then, I still believe R. Kelly probably made some money off of that. Bitch. I don't know how I fucked that word or something. Some people really got mental health issues. Some people really got mental health issues. That shit funny. I mean, I really made my point with that. Saying God may allow polygamy to protect and provide for his women who could not find a husband or otherwise. Or a woman might have been a little ugly. Let's be real. Some women be ugly, and they're not gonna be a man's first choice, but they may be the third. She probably will be a good cleaning bitch. I'm being real. Like, yeah, we love her, but watch them kids. Like, I mean, what do you gotta do that? Somebody gotta do the dirty work. And I'm being funny because somebody's gonna pull from this and be like, "Oh, look what I told you, bro." It's a team. Everybody's doing the dirty. Everybody's doing dirty work. If we're gonna have a successful team, you can't just put all the dirty work on one person and think that's gonna be a successful team. That shit gonna fall and be in shambles in no time. If you know how to run a successful team, everybody has to have a fair share of the grit and the grind, and they also have to have they also have to believe that it's gonna be worth it. So you can't just give somebody the grunt work and just shit on them and think they're gonna accept it. It's just unrealistic. But me being funny, yeah, some bitches gonna be a hard 5. You think I'm gonna make you my main? Like, let's be real. Some women are literally, you don't get daytime bitch. Like, you are no daytime bitch. Like, I would never be seen with you in the daytime, and they don't even have to be ugly. That could just be like, you not wifey. Like, you're not even close to that type of material. So those women need love too. Like, yeah, I always say big women need love too. 5s, 6s, 4s. They need husbands. And sometimes they don't want to settle for the nigga that's a 4. They want a nigga that's an 8. But guess what? If you want a nigga that's an 8, you're going to have to be a good motherfucking fold clothes lady. You're going to have to be a good babysitter. You know what I'm saying? Like, the nigga that's an 8 got a 9 or a 10 with him and looks. He probably got a side girl that's probably at least a 7. I'm being funny. But, like, if you want an 8, you probably going to have to mingle your way in somewhere. Oh, fucking hilarious. I am. Like, somebody gotta hang the clothes outside. Somebody gotta put them on the dry line. Like, what you mean? But, and that's realistic though. Like, all women aren't created equal. Some of them didn't have fathers in their lives to protect them, so they gonna need help. And they might not be the most beautiful woman out there. Does she just have to be an independent woman these days? Take opioids, get drunk, and have cats? Try a few lesbian couple relationships out, and by the time she's 60, just be single? Is that the goal? Or can she, maybe in a polygamous relationship? Bring some of the wine to the table. Maybe one cat to the table. It's realistic. It's so many single women out there that are fucking miserable. That need help, that need guidance. And they would be these women would probably be great under the stewardship of a married couple. Because essentially that's what they'll be taking on, a new steward. And all right, now let's see how you gonna play your role to fit this team. What you good at, bitch? Can you pass? Can you shoot? Are you good at defense? what are you good at? And if that's the case, you need to play your role while me and her put up 30, nigga. Like, what you talking about? Let us drop 30, nigga, and you pass us the ball. Like, and once you become great at assisting, nigga, we may make you run, though, or some shit like that. Maybe you could be a CP3, nigga, get you a few shots in. You can now average like 18 and 7 or something like that. But let's be real. That's more realistic than a woman thinking she's going to be independent, just going to worry about friends and family. Man, that shit ain't going to last long. That shit ain't going to last long. But let's keep reading. It seems that God have allowed polygamy to protect and provide for women who could not find husbands otherwise. Bro, you know how many women can't find husbands? It's even more rampant today than it's more rampant today than it's ever been. I can argue that. I can legit argue that. With men being taken out of the households, with women saying they don't need a man, it's probably more arguably worse today with women not having fathers or husbands to protect and provide and pass them on to their husband. So yeah, it gotta be. A man would take multiple wives and serve as a provider and protector for all of them. While definitely not ideal, living in a polygamous household was far better than alternative prostitution and slavery and starvation. And let's be real, to even compare those two things, to say that, oh, it's not ideal, well, ideal means a lot. Ideal means normal. Ideal means that what you're used to. But when you say not ideal, but it was far better than alternatives like prostitution and slavery, I know you say far better, but it's not even close. It's not even close to prostitution and slavery. I wouldn't even. It's not even a realm of thought. Like, but the reason I say that is because it all depends on the polygamous household that you're in. If you're on a good team, that shit gonna be bigger than them. That shit would be better than a monogamous relationship. While definitely not ideal, in a polygamous household was far better than alternatives. And I will argue the alternative can be monogamy. If you do polygamy right, there's nothing better than that as far as relationship. I would argue. I believe that trinity is more special and can produce better results than a dynamic two. I seriously do. I'll die believing that. But it is a million different reasons why I think that. From say if there's 3 people, the engagement, the different variations of engagement would change. Things would be won't get stale fast at all. I mean, I don't think that's a big problem with people that's like productive in monogamous relationships in general, but I just think that you would never really be in danger of these things. The competition will it also inspire certain things and keep certain things going because you always have a reliable checks and balance, but it's not something that's a disrespectful one, but it's something that keeps you accountable without having even to say something because literally there's another woman there doing her job. Why aren't you doing your job? And as a man, you got to be accountable because there's literally two women there. Like one woman can complain her ass off to you and you don't listen. If there's two, her point gonna be a lot louder. So even then, the checks and balances for a woman, say a woman don't want to have sex with her man and want to be sexless and want to play games with the man. It's gonna be hard to do that when there's another woman in the room. You're gonna start losing value in that relationship very quick if there's another woman in the room. Say a woman don't want to clean up, there's another woman cleaning up, along with the man already helping clean up, and you ain't doing shit. It's gonna be hard to sit in your ass when two people in the house doing shit. It's easy to do it when one person doing it because you're like, well, I was doing this, I did that, I did this. You can't lie, you can't make that same lie to two people. Same for a man. You may be trying to run game that you can run on one woman. You can't run it on two. And that's just proper checks and balances. Vice versa, there's other things that benefits. Your girl want to go out to eat, but you don't want to go out. She can go out with her and have great conversation. Y'all two go out watch a movie. Y'all have great conversation. Y'all three go out and have go watch a movie. It's gonna be even better conversation. Why? Because there's three different perspectives watching one movie that y'all all can talk about. Your back hurt, you need a massage. She don't want to do it. He don't want to do it. There's somebody else that can do it. One person was too tired. The other person was too tired. And maybe the other person not. This person don't want to make you a sandwich. That your husband don't want to get up and get you something to drink. Maybe she can do it. This person's sick. One person got to work. That person can help the other person that's sick. Then that other person got to go work. The other person can come back and help the person that's sick. Like it's many reasons and benefits that I could see that it could be better. I'm not gonna argue that people can't say monogamy has its benefits as well. Like I'm not gonna argue that, but in the context of this conversation, I had to make that point. In addition to protection, provision, and factors, polygamy enabled a much faster expansion of humanity, fulfilling God's command to be fruitful and to increase and multiply on earth. Men are capable of impregnating multiple women at the same time period, causing humanity to grow at a much faster rate, which only produces one child per year, essentially. So, yeah, the multiple thing is essentially a big thing, but I look at it as more nurturing too. Like your household would be more nurturing because there's just more people there. It's literally a community inside of a household, damn near. Along with then you might have a real community outside that household. Like I said, it's so many benefits, but how does God view polygamy today? Even while allowing polygamy, the Bible presents monogamy as the plan that conforms most closely to God's ideals in marriage. The Bible says God originally intended one man to be married with only one woman for this reason. Well, originally intended was before life and earth started to change in many different ways. When he originally intended, it was only Adam and Eve, essentially. Then when there became multiple, different variations on earth started happening. Women started being alone. Things started to change. Essentially is what I'm getting from this. But I could be wrong. For the reason a man will leave his father. My bad, let me go back. I think I went too far. Plans to confirm most closely to God's ideals in marriage. The Bible says God originally intended one man be married to only one woman. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, not wives. And that will be one flesh and not fleshes. I can argue that too. Because a trinity is a unity and it becomes one. It says Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit is one, right? The Holy Trinity is one. And it would be no different. Like if you have a team of 11 players and they all buy into the team uniform, the team beliefs, the team motto, the coaching beliefs, the GM beliefs, the philosophy, the systems, they become one. They move like a unit. The best team, whenever you have a team and they're competing, whoever is most likely can move like one, simultaneously move like an individual or move like one person would be the most successful team. That's why when you go to certain groups like the Army, they try to get rid of the individual. When you go into certain frats and fraternities, they try to get rid of the individual mindset because they want you to buy into the brand and to the team, so they can make that team as successful as possible. But through doing that, you have to become one and as close as possible. So even through that, like, yes, two coming together can become one, and that's common sense. But the same thing can happen with 3, 10, or a whole nation. But of course, the bigger you get, the more risk that you can apply. So there is that. I'm just bringing some holistic understanding to these conversations, because at the end of the day, these are all different perspectives of people that's interpreting stuff. You see, I don't know, or it's still up to interpretation and things like that. So rather than how, let's see, one flesh. While Genesis is describing what marriage is rather than how many people are involved, exactly. That's what the flesh, what 1 and 2 become flesh and shit like that. There's more talking about what marriage is. The ring, my bad. Rather than how people involved, this consists of using a singular to be noted. Deuteronomy, God says kings were not supposed to multiply wives or horses. Okay, that's with Solomon. While this can be interpreted as a command that kings must be monogamous, it can be understood as declaring that having multiple wives causes problems. That's what I'm getting from that more than anything, but call me crazy. We both said the same thing. This can clearly be seen in the life of Solomon. In the New Testament, the husband of one wife is a list of qualifications for a spiritual leadership. This is some debate as to what specifically means this qualification, or specifically this qualification means. The phrase could literally be translated a one woman. Wait, these words are too similar, fucking me up. A one woman man, whether or not this phrase is referring exclusively to polygamy, in a sense, can a polygamist be considered a one woman man? While the qualifications are specifically for one position in leadership, they should be applied equally to all Christians. Should not all Christians be above reproach, intemperate and self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money? If we are to be holy, if the standards are holy, the elders and deacons, then if the standards of the holy, or is for the elders to be holy, then we should be held to that standard. I can get that. I can understand that too. I can understand that too. Like, say you're a leader and you have a wife, and it's known that you have a wife, and you're not gonna look outside of that. It would make a lot of the men that follow you at ease, because they know you're not gonna take their bitch or they woman, and then vice versa. Like, these women may not be trying to be as tempting to you, which they still gonna be. That you really can't control that. But at the end of the day, I think it could alleviate a certain amount of things. Versus, like, if you had a bunch of different wives, you had a bunch of different side bitches. It's like open season, and you a leader. Like, it could come off like you're unfocused. Like like, let's be real. Like with MLK, like MLK had bitches out the bungalow, right? And it was nothing wrong with that, because everything he got done. But if it was to come out that he had bitches out the bungalow while he was in the middle of all that Million Man March shit, it would have came off a different type of way versus us finding out after. Because people would have questioned his focus, whether that was true or not, whether it had any legitimacy or not. It would have been came into question. a lot of things would have came into question. People would have attacked his wife. People would have been like, "How could you accept this? How could you be happy with this? How could you sit up here and let a man just do you any type of way?" So now they're attacking the wife. The wife is now like feels a certain type of way, and now she's going to bring that into the home. And now he can't do his Million Man March shit, and his speeches is good because now the woman is quarrelsome because of some shit that people antagonized her and gassed her up and shit like that. So I could see how a leader should technically maintain the image of having one woman because it would cause a lot of problems. I really can't see that. Like, after all the benefits and things that I've said, I can, just off that last statement alone, I know for a fact there's going to be other jealous women trying to call your woman and be like, well, how could you even allow him to do all that? And that on itself is going to cause problems that, bro, as a man that's trying to stay on his purpose and grind, that shit is fucking irrelevant to the bigger goal and picture. So all that shit is going to be a distraction. So maintaining the image as a clean man and sleeping around and not sleeping around and being smart is, I could see it, bro. I could see it. And even if you do sleep around, not being open and not being where everybody knows it. Because even with Martin Luther King, yeah, certain people knew it. Yeah, there might have been rumors, but for the most part, that shit went throughout history without him knowing. So if there's any way that you're going to do it, let it be like MLK. I'm going to be real. Versus like, oh, you openly like, yeah, I got a bunch of bitches and I'm a leader. What now? It's like you just inviting shit because let's be real. A man being with a lot of women is looked at as like a valuable thing. Like, a man can have a bunch of money and still not be able to have like 2 women on his arm. Versus there could be another dude that have way less money and can have 2 or 3 bitches or women with him, and the dude with more money looking like, how could he do that? Like, a woman having multiple women can be looked at as valuable, right? So now say you are a leader and you have these multiple women. People will look at you like you stunting on them. Men will look at you like you stunting on them. Women will look at you like you stunting on them. And they're like, bro, you will entice a lot of negative spirits out of people. Whether it's justified or not, which most of the time it really wouldn't be justified because they should be minding their fucking business. And that's also important to why your relationship shit should not be out in the open, because even then, you could be in a monogamous relationship and let people think you a monogamous happy relationship. It'll be the same fucking thing. Oh, you're happy and monogamous? Oh, you're stunting on me. I've never been in a happy monogamous relationship. There has to be something wrong. He has to be cheating on you. He has to be looking at other bitches. So yeah, I could see it. And that's what makes it like, it really brings home how important it is to just keep that shit at home. Because monogamous or polygamous, you're at dangers of people fucking with your shit. And obviously, even if it's gonna happen in monogamous, if you add more to the situation, it only probably gonna get worse. That's just realistic. They say 1 is cold, 2 is more. Like, it's an abundance. You adding on to the equation. And that could be done in a good way or be done in a bad way. Sometimes you can need more people and it can add to the production. Sometimes when you add more people, it can add to the dysfunction. It can go both ways. So yeah, if those same problems could exist in monogamous relationship and you're not careful of checking that and making sure it wouldn't happen in a monogamous relationship, it's damn sure gonna happen when you get in a polygamous one. So I can see it. We're gonna read the rest of this and then we'll get out of here, because it asks 3 important questions that I felt like should be talked about, to be real. But it said, what was the questions? Why did God allow polygamy in the Old Testament? It answered that question pretty well. How does God view polygamy today? It answered that question pretty well. And even if you didn't answer it, I feel like I gave a little swag for you. And then let's get into, how did it change? It is not so much God disallowing something he previously allowed as it is God restoring marriage to his original plan. That makes sense to a degree. Even go back to Adam and Eve, polygamy was not God's original intent. God seemed to allow polygamy to but let's be real. If we're gonna go to God's natural first intent, God's first intent was man to be alone. God's first intent was no woman at all. So it's hard to say God's original intent, Because was God originally short-sighted when he put Adam by himself? Like, why didn't God know that Adam needed Eve from the beginning? Or maybe God put Adam on earth so he can figure himself out as a man before he put a woman on earth. That's pretty smart. That's pretty smart. I give God that. I give God that. I give God that. I was talking shit because it's like, well, why wouldn't God put him on earth first? Why wouldn't they put them together? But it's like, well, if that was the case, how would Adam know to be the leader? How would Adam be able to be? How would Adam be able to confidently give wisdom to his wife if they both peers to this situation? So even, damn, God putting Adam on earth first was showing who he wanted to be the leader. Because if he wanted man and woman to be peers, he would have put Adam and Eve on the earth at the same time, so they experience things at the same time, and they can have their own perspectives, and they can argue and debate and all these different things. But no, he put Adam on earth first, so he can name things, so he can get a taste and a grasp for things. So when Eve come into the play, boom, he already got a kind of a game plan and certain things to give her to make sure she's good and protected and provided for. It'd have been hard for Adam to provide and protect for Eve if they came in at the same time, because he was naked. It took him a few days before he put the leaf on. It took him a few days before he probably built the tent and shit like that. So damn, I'm curious, bro. I'm fucking curious now. Adam and Eve has the lost forbidden stories of Adam and Eve. And if you read that shit, it's very deep. It's a very deep conversation. The lost or the forbidden books of Adam and Eve, or the lost books of Adam and Eve, and it's very dark. It can get very dark. It deals with death, it deals with reincarnation, and some more shit. But I'm also curious to how did Adam live before Eve got there? Like, obviously, there were him naming the animals and stuff like that. But I need to know the conversations that were had between him and God when he was by himself. And I kind of get a taste of that because I think the books of Adam and Eve do kind of talk about that. I'm trying to remember, because there was times where Eve wasn't there even when she had been introduced to him. And he had his talks with God when he was by himself. And I think he also made a talk with God before Eve got there with the forbidden book of Adam and Eve. I had to refresh my memory. But yeah, bro, that was an interesting thought bubble that popped up in my head when they start talking about God's original intent. So let's keep going. God seems to have allowed polygamy to solve a problem, but it's not ideal. In most modern societies, there is absolutely no need for polygamy. I would question that because, like I said, bro, a lot of monogamous relationships are so fucking flawed because of the equal mentality, the 50-50 mentality, the constant like quarrelsome behaviors and from both sides, right? So ultimately, like I said, when there's a polygamous relationship, I feel like there's a more natural checks and balance. I would say that it's more needed than ever. Especially when you consider a lot of black men in jail, a lot of black men gay, a lot of black men are not even fit to be husbands to one woman, let alone two. So when you look at it like that, even Kevin Samuels said, yeah, women have a lot of options, but if you want the good options or the great options, you're going to have to share. And me, how I think like an elitist. Put the best women with the best men and let survival do its fittest. I truly do think that. I don't feel bad for men necessarily that can't get women, because I know that they have what it takes in them to get women. But at the end of the day, if multiple women want successful men, I think they should find ways to share that, man, and create technically a dynasty. So when it says that it's not needed today, I will argue that, man. I will argue that, and maybe you could speak to certain communities not needing it versus other communities. But to say you can look out in the earth or into all the different societies today and say that and make that blanket statement, I disagree. I disagree. In most cultures today, women are able to provide and protect for themselves. That's a lie. They're able to provide for themselves, but they are not able to protect themselves from the emotional abuse and the physical abuse of this world and society. Society is taking advantage of the fact that women are single and don't have any guidance, and to replace that, they'll just have spending habits and going out to eat habits that's super crazy, and the corporations love it because they can eat up the single income homes because there's no recycling of money and income and wisdom and all that different things going on. Just a bunch of single miserable people contributing to trying to fill the the void of being single and miserable. So they buy toys, they buy different things of trying to replace community and home to fulfill them. Going out to clubs to fill the community and home. Getting drunk all the time to ignore the void. Like, I'm be real. I'm be real. Anytime there was an argument for it, man, it would be today. In most cultures, women are able to provide and protect, and even the providing, every demographic of woman makes significantly less than the demographic of male that they belong to. And they also spend more. Sounds like somebody needs some providing and protecting to me. Removing the only positive aspect of polygamy. That's crazy. That's crazy because I just named many different positive aspects to polygamy, but they said that's the only positive aspect is protecting and providing, and the fact that a woman don't have that, now she's the fact that a woman don't have that, that's the only reason she should be in a polygamous relationship. The fact that she can't find somebody to be by herself, she got to just hop into a group and third wheel it. And that's just not what it is. It's just not what it is. Because that third wheel could be so tremendous to making this biker now a trike. And think about it. If you ride a bike, a motorcycle, it's more dangerous than driving a trike, right? Because why? It's 3 wheels instead of 2. Let's think if you made a table. Kevin used to love, if you take a leg off a table or take a leg off a chair, how sturdy would it be? Give something only 2 legs and see how much balance it got. Look at humans. We clumsy as fuck. Now look at an ape that stand on his hands and legs, or look at something that has 4 legs and how easy it is, or have 4 wheels, how easy it is to move and be more secure and safely. Yeah, 2 is safe, but it's only so safe. It's way more than, like I said, and it's also way more benefits than just saying, what is that, protecting and providing or whatever like that. Like it's just that's kind of cap, bro. I'm not gonna lie. The only aspect. It's just a while. Furthermore, most modern nations outlaw polygamy. According to Romans, we are to obey the laws of government established. The only instance in which obeying the law is permitted by the scripture. And anything that comes from Roman, I'm careful to watch, because you know who the Romans were. Those are the same people that killed Jesus. So according to Rome and the Romans, we are to obey the laws of government establishment. No shit, they gonna say that. Like, and if God did say that, the only reason he says that is to survive, not to believe and to think that what they're saying is morally correct or just. It's just to survive. If when God said that, that's what I get from it. But the Roman Empire, they say it as a form of tyrannical government. God says it as a form of surviving. So when God says it, it don't necessarily mean it's evil or it's bad or don't do, like, or obviously don't do it because he don't want you to die or nothing like that. But so in this modern day times, you can't have 2 wives, but you can have a wife and a girlfriend if the wife is fine with it. You might can't have two wives because people are dumb, but that's only a matter of time until people change it, essentially. Or you can just move to Utah. I'm being funny. I don't even know if that's illegal there, if it's legal there, but the only instance in which in disobeying the law is permitted by scripture is the law contradicts God's commands. And since God only allows for polygamy and doesn't command it, allow for a law forbidding polygamy should be upheld. Okay, I guess. But it's also laws that say you don't have to get married and you can have sex with multiple women. So it's like, do you just do that? Like that part to me is just like this is a bunch of litigation behind it, so don't do it. It's like, I'm being real. Like, only instance in which you don't obey the law when it contradicts God's commands. But it wasn't God's command. He said there's a reason for it, but it's not really a command. Hey, whatever, bro. Y'all being extra literal, and y'all already was being biased because you could see certain words like the only positive aspect. When people say only positive, they're literally trying to paint a narrative that is risky beyond what it really is. But like I said, we're gonna read that and be done. Appreciate y'all watching, tuning in, subscribing, liking, commenting. And I'll tune in, man. We'll be back later. Peace. Something went wrong. What went wrong?